Ladies and gentlemen, and sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple 2 or 3 best podcasts around. We got all the Bears talk you can handle, which is a little bit more than I care to stomach this week. So grab a nice cold one and a Paula sausage, and park your keister in your French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
We'd like to take a quick second to mention our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Hockey comes back to the BMO Saturday, October 11th. Don't miss all the exciting action. Head over to icehogs.com for your tickets now.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, your favorite Chicago sports podcast. Today we're going to be talking Chicago Bears and Chicago Bears only. So if you're looking for Blackhawks, Bulls, Cubs, Sox, or Ice Hogs, check out. We're going to have another episode midweek, probably Thursday. So we'll be talking more of that stuff. This episode, we really want to focus on the Chicago Bears. They opened the season today in not so spectacular fashion. And we are going to have our first Bears guest here. And as always, with this, we like this to be interactive. So if you have comments or anything that you want to add, feel free to get in touch with us. We're fairly accessible. If you want to have your comments left on the air, your actual voice, feel free to give us a call at the hotline at 847-261-4146. That's 847-261-4146. Leave a voicemail, and we will be able to play that on the air. And if you have questions, we can answer them. Or if you just want to rant and rave about how we're terrible or the Bears are terrible, or whatever you want to rant about, feel free to call that number. If you're more the email type, you can email us at billswerskistc@gmail.com. That's Bill Swerski, Swerski, STC@gmail.com. And so with that, let's have our first guest on. Welcome to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, Lester. And Lester is a blogger on the SB Nation Bears blog. What were your thoughts on the
Gridiron?
Windy City Gridiron. So I was having an old man moment there. I guess the first thing I want to say is the one word I could describe the game is just disappointment.
It was terrible. I mean, I don't think anyone expected the offense to look like it looked. I mean, obviously the injuries hurt, but Jay Cutler, he had the one takeout was the first one. Martellus Bennett came out in the press conference afterwards, said that was on him. He wasn't really looking. I think he didn't read what Jay read, and Bennett should have read it a different way. He should have came back for it. And then the second one, though, there's no possible way that throw should be made by an NFL quarterback. That was just horrendous on Cutler's part.
Yeah, the first one, if you watch it, you could sort of see that the way it was, the play developed, that you expect Martellus to come back, but when you have the second interception, it's like the cardinal sin is throwing back across your body on a slow developing play. It's just like it's cardinal sin.
It's a called bootleg. It was a short yardage situation. The Bills read it. They made a really good defensive play on it. But as soon as it was read, then the quarterback has to go out of bounds. He has to run. He has to do something. You cannot turn and throw back across his body and give a big chunky lineman an interception. It's just that was rough. I mean, that wasn't the game, obviously, but there were enough mistakes, and that was a big crucial mistake right there.
Oh, absolutely. And the way he rolled out slowly. He was expecting to make a quick throw, I believe, and when the Bills read it so well that he just needed – there was no way he was going to run for it, I don't think. He should have just thrown it away. And
Yep.
And you either go for it, I believe that was third down, and you just go for fourth down, or you kick a long field goal. but the interception was just, it hurt. Yeah, you're right. It didn't cost them the game, but it hurt.
Yeah, it was a rough one.
And I mean, the offensive line played impressively considering Slauson went down and Garza went down. And
yeah, the line was pretty good. They held up pass protection pretty good. The Bears only gave up 2 sacks. One of the sacks was on Jordan Mills. The other one was just the Bills ran an overload blitz, and they just kind of pushed Dante Rosario back, but it was a good play on their part. But for the most part, the pass pro was pretty good. The run game when they went to it was pretty good. It just with all the injuries though, it kind of added up, and you had Michael Spurlock getting reps at receiver, and it was just not the way you wanted to see the offense the first week of the year.
Yeah, and the one that really hurt for me was right at the end when the Bears scored the field goal to tie the game at 20, and there was the pass play to Brandon Marshall that I thought was a good no call of pass interference. I thought that was 2 guys going for the ball, but the one after it where Santonio Holmes was getting held really badly, I thought that should have been a holding penalty that would have given the Bears a first down, and B, if Alshon wouldn't have tweaked his hamstring, that should have been Alshon Jeffrey in there, and I don't think that cornerback would have been able to do that to Alshon Jeffrey. He's a much bigger body.
Yeah, if that was Jeffrey, plus it was it's a veteran receiver with Santonio Holmes, but it was kind of a slant there. He kind of let the defensive back get across his body, and if he's able to body the defender off a little bit, like you said, if it's a guy like Jeffrey, that's probably a catch he makes. But yeah, I thought the same thing you did. It looked like he was getting bodied a little bit past 5 yards. There should have been a flag. I'm not really into conspiracy, but maybe that was a makeup call from the picked up flag earlier on the drive where they had Bushrod called for hold, and they picked the flag up. But it happens. It's one of those crazy plays that the Bears have to make, and they couldn't do it.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't like saying, it was the ref that cost the game, because that was one play. The Bears had a 3rd and 1. They should have just got the first down. They still had time on the clock. Got the first down, and if need be, call a timeout and take your time. It was, I think, the biggest handcuff to the offense was I didn't necessarily like the game call, the plays. I thought there was a couple of cutesy calls, the flea flicker, just some of the plays when you had a big mismatch with your tight ends, especially Martellus Bennett. He was just working them. When they put a linebacker on him, he would beat him. When they would put a safety on him, he was too big for him. It was just a big mismatch, and I felt like they didn't utilize it as much. I mean, Bill Belichick would have gone to that well until it ran dry. And
that's for sure.
And I think the Bears sometimes think, well, it's too good to be true to keep doing this, and make them beat you or stop it. And Matt Forte had almost how many yards did he have all purpose? Almost 200. And
yeah, he was close. He had 82 rushing and then another 87 receiving. So I mean, he was up there. It was as far as Martellus Bennett, he had 10 targets. I think he should have had a few more than that. Like you mentioned, he was open pretty much most of the day. It's a real tough mismatch, but that's what you're going to get with the West Coast offense. You're going to get it's going to look a little cutesy at times. You would like to see this come up and just do some power eye football, but that's just not really how the offensive line is designed. So those 3rd and 1 plays, you're going to see a little more of that the boot stuff and the rollout stuff as opposed to just straight pounding up the middle. But but it's still the Bears have to get it done when it's only a yard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't suggesting that they pounded up the middle because they're not that kind of team. But I really liked that short, quick slant that they did to Santonio Holmes earlier in the game. They have 2 tight ends that were working a mismatch. You have Matt Forte out on the flat. I mean, I felt like if you had a play where you develop it quick, where the quick slant, or we roll Forte out for a safety valve, you have a much better shot at getting that first down because Matt Forte was, he was gaining yards, left and right. And I think that was just, they didn't utilize those 2 enough. I think that was, go ahead, sorry.
I mean, as bad as some of the mistakes were, the offense, still did put up a lot of yards. I think that the bigger problem was the inability to stop the run again. The Bills were close to 200 yards rushing, which kind of resembled the stuff we saw last year. And it was just a rough go around from the linebackers. The misdirection kind of hurt them again. And I think it's something we're going to see a little bit here as the year goes on until the linebackers kind of get their feet under them. Hopefully they do. If not, it's going to be a real long year.
Yeah, I saw the thing that I feared the worst when we signed Jared Allen was it came to fruition where he doesn't keep his contain, and then he ends up having to run halfway across the field to try to tackle somebody from behind. And we saw that a couple times. The linebackers did non-existent. I mean, you didn't hear Briggs' name called. You didn't hear McClellan. You didn't hear him. I felt like the linebackers had a really bad game, and Chris Conte didn't have a very good game either.
He had the one bad angle on the big run earlier, but that's one of those runs that they had last year where the running back was untouched, so he had a full head of steam, and you have your safety flying up from way deep, trying to make a play. But I thought Conte played a little better than some thought. Obviously the last play hurt, but at that point, he even said himself in the locker room, he's just trying to at that point make a play on the ball because the Bills are already in field goal range at that point because because of the big run. So if he takes them out of bounds or takes it down right away, it's still going to be a makeable field goal. So he had to do something. He obviously is not strong enough to do anything, so it looks kind of comical. But he's unfortunately he's still probably the best free safety on the roster. You just got to hope that he plays a little better and the front seven plays better moving forward.
Yeah, I just when they had McCray in there, McCray made some nice plays. I wish I knew what it was that the coaching staff didn't see in him. I know when they brought him in, he was brought in to be a special teams guy, but I thought he played very well in preseason. I felt he did well in practice, and I thought he played well when he was given a chance today. I just wonder what it is that they see in Conte that they don't see in McCray.
I think a lot of it is just his reads and pass coverage. With Chris Conte, he's a little more of a natural free safety. McCray seems a little more. He thinks a little bit. It seems when he's dropping in zone. That's the kind of stuff that I've heard. Through some of the beat writers and stuff. Is just McCray is a little more robotic in coverage. Conte is a much more fluid athlete. He's a lot faster. The problem is his tackling is maybe not as good, but as a safety, you're hoping he's not making a lot of tackles. You want him back there to stop the pass. That's his primary job. It's the primary job of the linebackers to stop the run. The safety, they're back there to stop the pass. The front seven has got to do a better job.
I guess my biggest frustration on the team is Mel Tucker. Is he had the whole off season to go back, watch film, and see where his teams went wrong with their gap containments and try to fix it, come up with strategies to stop it. They were given a lot of new players, and the same things are happening, and that's just frustrating. That you knew that the Bills would be able to run the ball a little bit, but not as effective as they did.
They're a very good running team. They have the ability to have the read option because they have a very mobile quarterback, and that's a lot of stress on a defense. If the defense is a little bit out of their gap, it's really gonna cause a problem. If an end or outside backer are cheating in on the contain, it's going to be a big problem. Guys need to get to the edge, and you just got to hope that this is just the first game jitters from this group together. You got to hope it gets better, because if not, it's going to be a rough season.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have an easy one next week going to San Francisco, because I don't know if you're watching this Cowboys game, but they're running roughshod on the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough game. I mean, obviously you're going there. It's going to be their big, a lot of stuff going on with this season opener there for their brand new stadium. So you got to hope that the Niners are caught up in that a little bit. But it's with Jim Harbaugh as their coach, I don't think that's going to happen. You just got to hope that the Bears are able to keep that one close and not get embarrassed like a lot of people are expecting.
Oh yeah, I mean they're going to have to be pretty much flawlessly execute their offense next week if they expect to win, because the defense at best is gonna try to contain the run a little bit. I mean, as long as they could stop the big runs, if they're gonna move the ball, at least move it in modest gains, 4, 5, 6 yards. Don't give up the 17, 18, 19, 20-yard runs, and just keep moving the ball.
You know, I think you're going to see a little bit of the read option stuff again next week. You know, especially if they're obviously, you know, have done some scouting on the Bears, so you know they're going to do some read option stuff to Jared Allen's side, to Briggs' side, because they're a little slower than they used to be in the past. And then on the other side with you know, Shane McClellan's not as experienced as some other linebackers, so they may do some read option stuff to his side. The Bears just don't have the elite athletes, you know, on defense to slow down the read option. You really got to be really, you know, keen on your keys there. And if you're cheating in the slightest a bit, you know, it's like stealing for an offense.
Yeah, and the scouting report is out on the Bears, and everyone.
Oh yeah.
And you're going against the next few games. You got the 49ers who can just ram the ball down your throat, and then the week 3 is we go to New York, and the Jets I believe they ran for 200 yards this week.
Yeah. It's the same old story. You have to stop the run. If you're not stopping the run, then you know there's not going to be the chance to rush the passer, and that's what happened today. The Bears did not get the Bills in enough third and long situations to where they can really, you know, tee off and just go after the quarterback. You know, they had the one sack, I believe, by Young, but you know, I think it was Jared Allen always says that you have to earn the ability to rush the passer, and the Bears did not do that today.
Yeah, it's true, and I wonder if we're going to see a change of philosophy a little bit going into next week. I mean, I know we're not going to see anything completely drastic in a week to put in a game plan, but I wonder if they're going to implement some more run blitzes to try to keep the 49ers offense off kilter a little bit.
You know, they have to do something, you know, but the problem you run into with that is, you know, they're a very good play action pass team. So if you start, you know, selling out some of the run blitzes, now you're really going to be giving up the big plays. So, I mean, it's hard to say what Mel Tucker's going to do. I know one thing that, you know, the Bears are not a purely, you know, single gap defense anymore. They kind of try and have their guys, get across the line and hold their spots a little better. But, you know, unless the players can step up their game, unless some of these free agents come in and they can do a little more than what we saw, you know, today, it's going to be rough next week against the Niners.
Yeah, and you know, it's 1 week is really short time to try to watch the game film, implement the game plan, and get it into your guys, especially when you know what you really struggled with for the past year is something that the team you're playing against is excels at. So the Bears are gonna be really they're gonna have a challenge on their hands next week.
Definitely.
And what did you think about Fuller's play, first game as a Bear, first regular season game?
You know, the best thing is, I mean, there was no you know, glaring weaknesses. Obviously, I mean, I haven't had a chance to look at any of the film yet as far as the all 22 or anything like that. But you know, just, you know, his name wasn't called as far as making mistakes. I saw him come up a few times in run defense. He's a physical player. I think he'll be fine. It's just a matter of you know, you want to get, you know, the team in more nickel opportunities so you can get him out on the field more.
Yeah, and it seems like they picked on Tim Jennings more than anybody else, which is a little surprising that you didn't go after the rookie. But it seems like Jennings was the culprit on some of the bigger plays. I mean, they seemed like they were zone plays, but you know, he's the man that was lined up over him, so he's going to get the fan brunt, I guess.
Yeah, I mean the Bills have a, you know, it's an underrated offense. You know, they obviously they want to come on, they want to, you know, do stuff with the run game, but they have some talented receivers, and then their quarterback, obviously the young guy who struggled a bit last year. But you know, if he's healthy and if he takes that step, you know, the Bills could surprise some people this year. But you know, I don't think the Bears are expected to be surprised in week 1.
No, absolutely not. And I was impressed with the Bills because I felt like they had a good game plan. Is they established the run, and when they made some big pass plays when they needed to. Their wide receivers came up with some great plays, and the young quarterback didn't make many mistakes, and he wasn't dancing in the pocket like I was hoping he would be. And their defense played well enough.
Yeah, the defense, a really good defensive line the Bills do, and I thought they played good enough, like you said, but the Bears just had a few mistakes that kind of really hurt them, and defensively the Bears just could not get a stop when they had to.
And what's really hard to swallow is when you look at the Bears' schedule, they've got the card stacked against them a little bit on the beginning of the season where they play a bunch of road games in a row before the break. And when you look at the schedule going into a season, you pick out some games that are going to be really tough for you to win, some games that you definitely need to win, and then there's those toss-up games that pretty much decide whether you go to the playoffs or not. And this game should have been one of those ones that you have to win, looking at the schedule, and to lose it and lose it at home, it's a tough pill.
You said it best. When you look at the schedule, you hate to say the week one is a must win, but the way the schedule plays out this year, it really was a must win. They had to get a win at home because they're going to be on the road. They have a lot of road games early, and the Bills are a team that let's be frank, you've got to beat the Buffalo Bills when you have them in your place. And if you're a team that's expecting to be in the playoffs, this is not a game you can let get past you, and the Bears did. So maybe they're not as good as some people think. Or maybe it's just some rust they got to shake off, and they got to get everyone going. Maybe the injury to Marshall and Jeffrey hurt their offense more than we thought. But you got to hope that they can turn it around. And it's a veteran bunch, so I'm sure they're going to come out and play really good next week, and they're going to try and work on their mistakes. But San Fran is just a tough place to play, and it's one of the best teams in the league. So the Bears could be looking at 0-2.
Absolutely, and. You don't say a team like the Bills is that they're a cakewalk team, but when you look at it, on paper, the Bears are at home. The Bears are healthy because it's the start of the season, and the Bears have more talented weapons on their team. They should have won, and it's not a slight against Buffalo. It's just a fact of the NFL is you have a better team. It's that you're at home. You're expected to go out there and win.
Yeah, the Bears had to come in with a game plan of stopping the run. They had to want to make E.J. Manuel beat them, but they could not slow down the run at all, and it just was just kept getting worse and worse as the game went on. Yeah,
and it's a tough one to swallow. And on my way home, I was listening to Lawrence Holmes on the radio, and he kept harping that Emery was a culprit because he didn't bring in a quality number 3 receiver to be behind Jeffrey and Marshall, and it was, and I was kind of giving a funny look to my radio because I thought Marquise Wilson looked phenomenal in the off season. I went to a couple of training camp practices, and I went to the Bears practice at Soldier Field, the family day, and I thought he looked phenomenal. I mean, I watched him beat Peanut Tillman regularly, and he looked great. That the off season spent working out with Marshall really did him good. So you expected him to come in and be a really good number 3 receiver, and unfortunately he went down hurt. How much depth do you expect? Does any team have at wide receiver in this league?
Yeah. I think a lot of people are kind of just since Marcus Wilson is out of sight, out of mind, or they haven't given him much thought. But you said it best. He's a guy that they expect to be the number 3. He has virtually no experience in the NFL. Last year I think he only had a couple snaps. He only get 1 catch I think on the year. But this is a guy that they had counted on, to be a big part of the offense as the number 3. But I thought they did bring in some guys. They brought in Antonio Holmes. Obviously, the veteran they brought in late. He's an experienced NFL player. They brought in Josh Morgan, who had 199 receptions in his career so far. So it's not like he's a guy that, has no experience. They did make a few moves, but losing Wilson really hurt him.
Yeah, and I mean, Santonio Holmes is right. They brought him in late, and he's still learning the playbook. I mean, it's a pretty complicated playbook, and he's coming in here after only a couple weeks. And you're right. They had Spurlock and Josh Morgan. They have guys that have done something in this league. So it's to say that Emory didn't give them anything to work with is if you have arguably the best wide receiver tandem in the league in Marshall and Jeffrey, is how much more talent can you bring in at wide receiver feasibly in this age of salary cap?
Exactly. I mean, you have Brandon Marshall making a pretty good chunk of change. Alshon Jeffrey's still on his rookie contract, but it's going to be up in a couple of years. So you're going to have a lot of money tied up on the position. Are you going to go out and spend a lot of money on a third guy? The third guy is going to be a vet minimum kind of guy, or is he going to be a rookie that you can develop like Marquise Wilson?
Yeah, and they did a phenomenal job. But was he 7th round pick?
7th round pick. He was the youngest player that was drafted when he came out. Obviously, he had a lot of problems in college, with the coach, and so that's a big reason why he had to leave school early. But that's a talented kid. I mean, of his draft class, he was rated, the top 5 in his draft class at wide receiver had he stayed in. So if he would have stayed in college, he wouldn't have had his issues. He would have been a early round receiver pick this year. The fact that he was in the draft a year too early, he was 20 years old. The Bears picked him at 7th. He wasn't ready for the NFL, obviously, at that age. But, he spent the offseason, like you said, working with Marshall down in Florida. He came in, stronger, faster. He's a better route runner. And just a crazy injury in camp, really, it's going to stun his development a little bit. But he will be back at some point. They put him on the short-term IR, so he'll be back for week 9 against the Packers.
Yeah, it's hopefully the committee receiver, so the number 3 by committee will hold up. And I don't think, Spurlock didn't have a great game, but I didn't think there was terrible play out of your number 3 receivers, especially considering that Marshall tweaked his ankle and Jeffrey tweaked the hamstring, and you had to rely on them more than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, Spurlock I can do without. I think he's just one of these guys he's hanging on the bottom of the roster. I was a little surprised they didn't have Josh Morgan in a little more, throwing him the ball, because Morgan was your 3 until they brought in Holmes. So now it's going to be Holmes and Morgan. Spurlock's your 5th or 6th guy, so I'm not sure why he's in the game that much. I guess with Tony Fiametta being out, they had a change of their game set up a little bit, doing a little more 3 and 4 wide out sets. But a guy I'd like to see get a little bit involved in the action is Dante Rosario. He wasn't targeted much last year. He had 1 catch, this game. But the few times we've seen him do anything, he seems like he has decent hands, and he seems to be a pretty athletic tight end.
Yeah, and if you watch some of the plays, and I haven't gone back and watched the game in depth again, the second watching. I will do that tonight. But a couple of times I just saw him. Just like with Martellus Bennett, he had a big mismatch, and he was open coming across the flat, and I think he's another weapon they can utilize. Maybe we could see some more. I don't know. Have they said the extent of the Marshall and Jeffrey injuries?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I think they're gonna have MRIs. I know Garza is getting an MRI tomorrow. I think Slauson the same. As far as Jeffrey, they said it's just a hamstring slight. They said he was probable. They said, he may have came in if it was a different situation, maybe the playoff game. But with first game of the year, there's no point in sending him out there and risking his injury with the hamstring that's kind of staring up on him. Then with Marshall, I think it was an ankle, so we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, if we lose one of those guys for a little bit of time, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more 2 tight end sets where they go out, on routes and try to create some mismatches there. They'll have to do something creative if we lose one of those 2 receivers for more than a week or 2.
Yeah, with the offense, it's designed in the scheme to take advantage of mismatches. So if you're short in the receivers, you're able to bring in and do more, like you said, stuff with 2 tight ends. If they get the fullback back, now they can do some stuff with him. Mark Tresson will find a way. I think it was his last year in Canada. he had a really bad injury problem, and he started doing a lot of stuff. I think it was with his tight end. He ran a lot of double and 3 tight end sets just because that's the personnel he had. So as far as personnel wise, I think Tressman will be okay. I mean, even today with the offense put up a lot of yards. He'll find a way with his offense. It's just a matter of cutting down on some of the stupid turnovers and mistakes, and getting the defense to stop the run.
Yeah, and another big concern is, if depending on how bad the injuries are with Slauson and Garza, is if those guys miss any amount of time, we have no backup linemen because they came in.
I think I got a feeling they're going to give a call to
Evan Britton. Yeah,
I think he's a guy. I checked the waiver wire. As of today, he was not picked up, so he's still out there. As long as he was healthy, when the Bears cut him, I think he's the guy they're going to want to come back because. I don't have a lot of faith in the rookie Charles Leno. I don't think he's ready for the NFL right now, but I think they kind of keeping him along on the team is more of a project. They didn't want to slip him through the waivers, try and put him back in the practice squad. They figured they'll keep him as their last lineman on the roster. But I think you're going to see Britton come back this week.
Yeah, I think so too. Even if Garza and Slauson play next week, I'm not going to be surprised because they kept really, they kept less linemen than they have over the. God, as far back as I can remember.
Yeah.
Only keeping 8.
There's also something with like the vested veteran. I know last year they brought Jonathan Scott in after week 1. It's like a money thing as far as accounting goes. I don't understand it fully, but I think that may be something at play as well. So bringing Britton in, hopefully as soon as possible, I think will really help the team.
Yeah, and I was actually. Slauson last year was probably our best offensive lineman, and Garza has been a very solid center for us. And I thought that De La Puente came in and played well, and he had some good plays. And I think Michael Ola is going to be a good player in this league. I mean, he's had his ups and downs like any rookie offensive lineman, but. Our first-year offensive lineman, and he came in and played reasonably well today for coming in cold and playing left guard for Slauson.
Yeah, he's a very versatile player. He got a lot of reps in preseason. I think that really helped him make the team. Obviously, Tressman liked him. He was familiar with him from the time in the CFL. But then with Michael Ola be able to play right tackle, plays guard. I think he's athletic enough to kind of do that, the Evan Britton role, where if they want to have a 6 offensive lineman in, I think Ola can do that as well. So I think, like you said, he's a guy that kind of came out of nowhere, and he's a solid backup at this point in his career.
Yeah, I don't see them doing a lot of the 6 offensive linemen thing this year because they've got Mulligan in there. And I think he's gonna fill that role because he can actually go out there and catch a pass. Whereas Evan Britton, when you had him in there, you knew that he was in there to block, and it didn't leave any doubts of what you were doing per se. At least Mulligan can go out there and catch a couple passes. He's not Tony Gonzalez or anything, but he can at least go out there and catch a pass.
Yeah, he's okay. I mean, he's not an elite tight end, but I mean he's made his money in this league as a blocker. He didn't have the best preseasons, but he's a guy that obviously they like a lot. They had him all through camp, so I like what he brings to the table. You need that extra guy, like you said with Britton. He's in the game. It's one dimensional. With Mulligan, at least you got a couple options with him.
Yeah, and I was if Miller hadn't gotten hurt, I wouldn't have been surprised if the Bears kept 4 tight ends. I was really expecting
it would have been
that.
Possible. Yeah.
I mean, going into before the injury, I was kind of making my rolling 53-man roster picks, and I really had, four tight ends.
Yeah, if you look at his career, he's a really athletic guy. I think he was one of the basketball guys in college. He played a little basketball there. He was solid as a young player in Jacksonville, but injuries hurt him there as well, and he's kind of bounced around a little bit after that, and it's just unfortunate that once he's starting to show that he's going to establish himself on the Bears. Obviously, it was early, but then the bad break, and he's a free agent after this year. But I think if his rehab goes well, I think the Bears are going to try and bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to make much money Well,
No.
compared to me and you, yes, but in the league, he won't. He's not going to make a lot of money, and so it's a minimal risk to bring him in. And if he plays healthy, you get a lot out of him. He's a talented guy.
Yeah.
And one other thing is, after a loss like this, you hear a lot of cries of, we got rid of Lovey because he couldn't score any points on offense, and now we bring in this guy who could score points, but he can't stop anybody on defense. And this is no league we're in. You have a limited amount of money you can spend, and you have an aging defense that you knew was being held together by needles and thread when Lovey was here, and it just all kind of imploded after Lovey left, and it's it's a work in progress. I mean, Lovey goes into Tampa this year, and that offense can't do anything. Already game one, and they couldn't do anything. So
no, it's like you said, it's a situation where it's if you have a good team on both sides of the ball, what you have is you have a lot of consistency in your coaching and your front office. And this is still on third year. It's going to take them some time to build the depth of the entire roster. I thought he did a good job getting the offense turned around, but there are already some pieces in place when Phil started to rebuild the offense. He already had a quarterback that he believed in. Brandon Marshall was already here. Alshon Becker was already here. So he kind of came in and he brought in a tight end. He brought in an offensive lineman. But then on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of your veterans are to the point where their career is just about almost over. So he's able to bring in some players on the defensive line, and then he's got to make some draft picks and hope these guys can learn on the fly. And last year they couldn't do it. This year you got to hope you see Bostic make an improvement. I thought it was interesting that Kasim Green was inactive today over Christian Jones. He was able to dress over Green, who was a lot of reps last year. I thought he looked pretty good in preseason. So we'll have to see how the linebacker unit kind of shakes out as the year progresses.
Yeah, I actually wasn't very high on Kasim Green in the preseason, and I figured coming in, I chalked up a lot of his play last year to being an inexperienced rookie thrown into the fire, and it wasn't like he was a super high pick that was so talented. He was a mid-round pick, and he got thrown in, and I felt having an off season to watch game film and to learn from mistakes that he would get better, and I didn't really see it. Whereas Christian Jones came in there and he's done everything they've asked, especially with an undrafted guy, and they're just high on him, and I think he's a guy that when I did my draft breakdown and my position breakdowns before the draft, I thought Christian Jones was a guy that was a really talented guy that was going to fall because he got thrown around and played a lot of different all three linebacker positions, and he didn't get to excel at one. I thought that was going to hurt him, and it did, and so that's the Bears capitalized on that. So I think he looked good, and we'll see what happens. But the linebacking core needs to get better. Briggs looks slow out there. McClellan looks a little lost. In the middle linebacker,
Williams.
Yeah, they just it's you're not getting anything out of them. I actually didn't think the interior defensive linemen played terrible. I felt like they took on blocks and left the gaps for the linebackers to come up, and I felt like the linebackers didn't come up. We'll see when I go back and watch the film again tonight. Be able to watch it in slow motion and see a little bit more in depth. But the linebacking core just didn't look very good today.
Yeah, I was kind of from the first time watching, I was kind of like you. I thought the D line looked okay. I thought some of the bigger runs was kind of more at the fault of the linebacker kind of getting out of position. There was a few stuff they got on the edge with the defensive end kind of in the wrong spot, but I thought for the most part the interior guys looked okay. Even when they brought in the young guys at D-tackle, I thought they looked pretty good as well. It's just one of those things, you got to hope, even though they're not completely still a one-gap defense, a lot of times they're going to do that. And if you're a little bit out of position, you're really going to give it up. And if you're doing as much misdirection as the Bills were, it's putting a lot of pressure on your defense.
Yeah, and looking at last year's defense versus this year's defense, I really feel that they did address a lot of the needs. Is with the big factor with the Bears in their defensive line was, in the interior, was the injuries. And the best defensive lineman you had play last year was Nate Collins, and he wasn't good enough to make the team this year. So that should say something. You've got a healthy Jay Ratliff, a healthy Paya, and then you bring in 2 draft picks. You completely overhaul the defensive ends. I thought Willie Young was a good pickup, a bargain pickup. Maybe they should try to. One thing is to not play Jared Allen as much and let him come in and be a little more fresh.
I'm really interested to see how the snap counts play out. I'm waiting for the NFL to release that to kind of see how because you saw Allen get some time off. You had Young a little bit right and left side. I'm just curious to see how that plays out. And a little bit going back when we talked about the read option. The way you got to disrupt that is you got to get the penetration. So I'm not sure if that's part of Tucker's scheme where he's not asking his line to penetrate too much. If he's asking them to do more, reading and reacting, I'll have to kind of go back through and look at the film on that as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting is, watching everything just the one time through on the as it's live, you get a perception, but when you sit down and watch it, like I have the NFL replay on my computer from NFL.com, and I can go back through and watch all the film and pause things and watch it in slow motion and really see where the missed blocks are or where guys, and man, it's like night and day what you miss.
Yeah.
And we'll see, and the Bears are going to go in there and watch the film and hopefully come up with a good game plan for next week. See, this one, you just take it on the chin and try to learn from it.
That's all you can do at this point of the year. It's only one game. So as far as fans go, a lot of them are already they're already all done with the season. You got to give it some time, let things play out. The Packers lost Thursday. The Lions play I think tonight or tonight or tomorrow. But we'll have to see how things play out. The Vikings look pretty good. I don't think they're going to be one of the top teams in the division. So we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is be better than the other teams in your division.
Yep.
And once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. With the Giants. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you said the Giants are a good example. If you get hot at the right time in the NFL, that's what all that matters. If you're healthy at the right time, that's all that matters. And hopefully the Bears can get things going and right the ship and start playing a little better team football. And if that's the case, and anything can happen. It's a long year.
Yeah, and one thing I'm interested in seeing is if we have Mark Trestman get a little more involved, get his hands more dirty in the defense. And I mean, he's an offensive-minded guy, but the thing about it is, if you watch your defense play and you talk it over with your defensive coordinator and say, hey, this is, as an offensive guy, this is how I would attack your defense. This is how I would do this. And you get a different perspective and see how your weaknesses look to other people, and you work on it that way. It's, I think Trestman, that's one thing that's true, is Trestman's got to roll up his sleeves and go to work on the defense. He's the head coach.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not sure how hands-off he is. I know with Lovie Smith, he was very hands-off the offense. I haven't heard much one way or the other on Trestman. You would hope he would be in there. Obviously, the offensive coordinator, he has an idea of how he wants to attack a defense, so he should have a good idea of how a defense should kind of stop an offense. So, but again, Motherfucker takes a lot of the blame, but the stuff I saw today was just I'm not sure how much of it was scheme-based today. I think a lot of it was just, players, there were a lot of mistakes. at the end of the day, when you want to stop the run, it's just man to man, man on man. You got to be able to hold your spot. You got to be able to maintain your gap integrity. You got to make a tackle and sort of make. And the Bears had too many mistakes today.
Yeah, you gotta wrap up, and
yeah,
that's what it comes down to. Is even if you can't make the tackle, is wrap up and hold on until somebody else gets there.
Definitely.
I mean, we saw that when Lovey was here and we had a really good defense. Is when guys couldn't make the play, they held them up and let their teammates swarm and be able to make that tackle. So if you can't make it, you hold them up.
There were moments early where I thought the Bears did a lot of gang tackling against the run, and it just seems like as the game went on, it kind of some of the misdirections kind of started playing fits with their reads. So you hope that's something that they can coach up and correct. If not, like we talked about, man, it's going to be a rough year if you can't stop the run.
Yeah, and I'm interested in going back and watching McClellan because I think he's got the physical tools to be a good linebacker. It just seemed like through the preseason that he looked like he was playing tentatively, and he did he was confused or the game was too fast for him, not physically but mentally.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to see him just try to shoot some gaps and take some chances because I think he's a physically gifted guy. This is his last go round to make this team and make a name for himself in the NFL.
Yeah, a lot of stuff with McClellan right now. He's thinking too much. He's playing a new position, so you can just see the wheels turning when he's on the field. He's just thinking about his responsibilities instead of just reacting. That's why a guy like Briggs, who obviously he's lost his step, but he's able to get by in his later years because he's just so much smarter in the system, knows what he's doing. You hope McClellan, if he has the physical gifts and he shows a little bit of promise, you hope he's able to learn his role and grow into his role and get to the point where he's just out there reacting. If he's reacting, he's going to be a much better player. And then plus they got him pulling off on nickel, so they cut some of his playbook in half. He's not having to learn, all of that stuff. Get out there, stop the run when you can. If you're covering tight ends as a strong side backer, do your job. And if everything's going good with McClellan, I think his ceiling on him is pretty high.
I agree, and I think just the one thing that I think Mel Tucker needs to emphasize with these guys is just, as Tom Thibodeau would say, do your job. And
exactly.
You know what you have to do and do it. Don't go above and beyond because when you do, you end up not doing your own responsibility and make it. If somebody is going to miss a play, then let the coaches go in there and figure out what they're going to do about somebody else not doing their job. You just get your job done. And I think I think a lot of these guys, the younger guys and some of the veterans that are trying too much, that if everyone just gets comfortable enough with each other that they trust that the guy next to them is going to do their job, that they just go and do you do your job, then you end up having a much better defense. And I don't have any high hopes that this is going to be a top 5 defense, but if we can get this defense to be middle of the pack, then we're going to have a good season.
Yeah, my expectations are a little lower than yours. I think they're going to, the best they should be in the 20s as far as a ranking goes. I think the best thing the Bears got to hope for is the offense can click to the point where they're just putting on points on people, they're pounding up yards on people, and they're going to pressure the other team to have to start matching their points. If they can do that, it kind of gives you like how the Rams were back in the day where they were just scoring so many points, it kind of forces the opposition to kind of match you. And now you're getting them in a situation where they're having to throw the ball to score points on you. And now you can rush the passer a little bit and let Young and Houston and Jared Allen just get after the quarterback.
Yeah, it's what the New England Patriots have done, where they've been able to hide a lot of their really bad flaws on defense by being able to put points up and putting you in a position where you can't do the game plan you originally wanted to exploit their defense. And they keep you off kilter that way, and so they can put your offense in a position that makes their defense stronger, and that's what you have to do. And the biggest weakness for the Bears is stopping the run, and if you can put up some points on the board and make the other team take that run away and make them feel like they have to pass the ball to keep up in the game, then you've done half the battle right there.
Exactly. It's all about making your team, you're facing, taking something away. And if your best way is take away the run by scoring a lot, and that's what you have to do as an offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And if a good offense can be a good defense, you make your opponent one-dimensional, and you're able to pin your ears back. If you're not worried about them, running the ball, then you just pin your ears back and go after the quarterback. Makes their job that much harder.
Exactly.
Well, what's your prediction for next week then? Winding this up a little bit.
I hate to say it, but I gotta go with the Niners. I think they're just too good. They're too deep. They're playing at home. The Bears' best chance is to hope that, with all the pomp and circumstances going on with the brand new opening of the stadium there, that the players kind of get a little lackadaisical. But with Harbaugh, that's not going to happen. So I think I hope it's close, but I got a feeling there's going to be a blowout coming up.
I think I'm going to have to agree with you a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to say a blowout. Depends on what we call a blowout. I think the Niners are going to win by 12. I don't think it's going to be quite 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
But I think it's
I can see it.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair, though. If I haven't seen when the line comes out, but if I gamble on the game, it's going to be on the over.
Yeah, the Bears should be able to move the ball a little bit. Obviously, you got to hope that, Jeffrey and Marshall are healthy. If either one of those guys are hobbled, it's going to hurt the offense a bit. You got to hope that your offensive line is back, and obviously if they're not ready to go, that's going to hurt. If all things equal, I think the Bears can score on the Niners, but we have to wait and see how that shapes out if this is going to be a healthy offense going up there to San Fran.
Yeah, what little bit of the game I watched today is it looked like the Cowboys were running the ball fine against the 49ers, and they had some good passes, but they had the fumble that was picked up in return for a touchdown. Romo had a couple of interceptions, one in the end zone that was just a really bad throw. So it was, I think a lot of the blowout today was the Cowboys shooting themselves in the foot, and if the Bears can clean up some of these mistakes, I think they can keep the game closer, but I don't see them winning it.
Nah, it's going to be unfortunate starting the year off 0-2 with such a rough front half of the season, but that's probably what's going to be staring the Bears in the face next week.
Yeah, but again, it's a long season. You take the games one at a time and do your best, and after that is the Green Bay looked very vulnerable against Seattle. That's a winnable game in Game 4. You have the Jets, who are an 8-8 team last year, and they've got a young quarterback who didn't look that great last year. So they're definitely beatable. So if you lose these first 2, you just have to come back and win those next 2.
Yeah, it makes it hurt so much even more. Like we were talking earlier, the Bills were a game that they should have won on paper, obviously. So if you're 1-1 going into the week 3, it obviously looks a lot better. You just got to hope that the Bears can get things going, to get their health together. Offense starts clicking. Defense, everyone's back on the same page. And, some of these, these crowd veterans like Tillman, Allen, and Briggs, and, they bring something, out next week to San Fran.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want to add?
No, it sounds good. We covered a lot of stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for being on the show, Lester.
No problem, Sean. We'll talk to you.
All right, take care. So that's going to wrap up another episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. We'll have another episode later in the week because we wanted to focus on the other sports. We've got some stuff going on there, but with the Bears, we wanted to make sure we got the Bears news hot and fresh to you. So look for another episode later this week. We'll call that episode 27.5. And also, make sure to check out icehogs.com. Check out our sponsor. Ice hockey comes back to the BMO October 11th. That'll be the Ice Hogs' first home game. So make sure to check out tickets at icehogs.com. Tell them Bill Swerski sent you. Tell them Bill Swerski sent you. So until next time, bear down.